In this week's video, I'm asking for some help. There are two areas of the garden that I've been struggling with for the last few years, and I would really appreciate the help of my amazing gardening community to see if we can solve the problem together. Hello everyone, and welcome back to Sundays in the Garden. I hope you've all had another brilliant week in your gardens and growing spaces. I've had another really relaxing one this week with lots of lovely time in both the garden and allotment, just enjoying the spaces and getting the odd jobs done. So it's been really lovely to have that relaxing time after a very busy start to June. If this is the first time you found one of my videos, welcome to the channel. My name is Sarah and I share all of the things I get up to in my English cottage garden, my kitchen garden area, and as of May this year, my brand new allotment as well. This year in 2025, I've been filming every single day of my gardening year, the highs, the lows, everything I've been doing day by day, month by month, in the hopes of inspiring others, kind of sharing our journeys together in this growing season. And I've also been doing lots of exciting things like visiting flower shows, taking part in the build of a show garden at Gardeners World Live, and loads of other brilliant things. So if any of those things sound like they could be useful to you or interesting to you, then please do feel like you can subscribe to the channel. It doesn't cost any money and just means you'll be part of our growing community as we learn and grow together. I'm filming this introduction on Tuesday, so let's jump back now to Sunday to see how my gardening week began. On Sunday, the first job of the day was to clear this overgrown salad bed. We've had some really amazing warm weather, which has had lots of advantages, but one of the disadvantages is that all of the salad leaves have started to bolt and set seed, so they are all coming out now so I can re-sow a second sowing. We have had lots of lovely leaves from these, so I'm not too worried. Just as I was sitting here, I noticed my robin friend come down, so I got her some mealworms out. She landed on the camera and then flew down to my hand here, as you can see, and then came crashing back into the camera. Here's a slow-mo of her crash. Bless her. Carrying on here, cleaning the salad bed, and then she came down to enjoy all of the ants and bugs that I'd exposed whilst clearing the bed. Next, it was on to cutting these sweet peas here, which are still coming and coming. It's amazing just how many they're producing. It's been a brilliant year for sweet peas. And I am actually keeping the shorter stems now because they've been cut so much. They are getting shorter. So I am taking the flower petals off and drying them in my utility room because I'm making some confetti for my sister's wedding, which is coming up very soon. So that's really exciting. And I've got lots of lovely confetti here. And I'm adding in cornflower petals as well. Next, I'm watering the She Grows Veg Manpacucci carrots, which is a giant carrot variety. And then I move down to water the now cleared salad bed before I sow some more seeds, because I like to water before I sow the seeds in order to stop the seeds moving around in the bed. But I found something really interesting while I was doing this. So I gave a really, really good water. This is not covering how much I did. I spent a good amount of time watering this bed. And then I went down and made a drill, a little trench to sow my seeds in. And I noticed that as soon as I pulled the topsoil back, the soil underneath was absolutely bone dry. So despite the amount of time I'd spent watering this bed, the soil underneath had not retained any water or gained any water. So it just shows how much water is needed to reach the roots further down. You think, oh yeah, I've done a really good amount of watering here, but it's sitting on the top of the soil, and when the sun heats it up, it will just evaporate before it has a chance to reach those seeds. So I then watered each of the trenches individually and then popped my seeds in. And here I've got radishes, spring onions, lettuce, spinach. I think that's everything that I put in here. But fingers crossed we'll get a lovely second crop of these. Now I'm in the greenhouse giving my tomatoes and one aubergine plant their weekly feed. I use Tomarite and do this once a week, and it seems to produce brilliant results every year. Once I've done the watering, I head outside, and the beautiful baby long-tailed tits are enjoying a feast of apple aphids on the apple tree. And to end Sunday, we head down to the allotment to do some much-needed watering in this very warm weather. She's getting braver and braver every day. Monday was a very busy day, so there was just time to feed the robin and check on the worm farm before I began my evening of teaching. On Tuesday, I harvested the last of the broad beans as they all start to go over now and be overtaken by the black fly. But where there are pests, there are predators, and the ladybirds and their babies have had an absolutely wonderful time feasting on all of these aphids. So I remove the beans, but I leave the plants in place for the ladybirds to enjoy. My little boys and I really enjoyed the shelling process of the beans and the peas, and so here we are counting out how many of each variety we've got. In this case, lots more Bunyard exhibition than the Red Epicure, but about an equal amount across the whole season this year. Then we head out to the fruit cage to see what kind of harvest we can get today, and we get lovely raspberries, blueberries and tayberries to enjoy. And then of course my robin friend comes down to get her daily feed. To end this lovely long summer evening, I pop up to the kitchen garden to spend some time clearing my chimney pot herb planters. This area has been rather neglected, so just spending 10 minutes clearing it means I can now access all of my herbs much more easily. The final job for this summer evening was to deadhead the roses that grow along the fence line in the kitchen garden, as they are nearly over for another season. Wednesday was another busy day, but we managed to get outside and enjoy all of the educational opportunities the garden has to offer, including some time for science, art, physical education, and food technology, as well as some counting here. And of course, the sweet peas just keep coming. Thursday was another very warm but blustery day, so after checking on the worm farm and collecting some worm tea, I headed into the greenhouse to water the tomatoes because keeping these hydrated is a high priority at the moment in this warm weather. Then I staked the taller tomatoes to give them some extra support, and we headed down to the allotment to take the mower to just cut back some of the worst of the weedy areas. Just trying to keep on top of this at the moment whilst I find the time to dig over this next section. But cutting it back definitely made it feel like we're getting somewhere, despite the poor state of the mower there. She is getting so brave, And as she sits here, I can see her looking off into the bushes, and I'm wondering what she's looking for. I know that she's got another nest this time round, and I'm wondering when her babies are going to start fledging. So she just sits here and she feeds, but constantly looking off over into the bushes. And what happens next is just wonderful. She brings her new babies to say hello. On Friday, I cleared this bed of the remainder of the cabbages, as it was finally time to plant the leeks. I sowed these such a long time ago, this was a long overdue job, but I think they're going to be just fine in here. Right guys, here is my first call for help. Now these are my Charlotte potatoes, they're sort of like second earlies, and they're in buckets. I grew them in buckets last year and they died off fairly quickly. This year they looked like they were doing a lot better, but then before they got really big and started flowering, they've done exactly the same thing. I think I kept them watered in the same way as everything else. I tried to water them perhaps a little bit more because they're in buckets. As you can see, they are producing potatoes, they have produced potatoes, but they're tiny and they haven't reached their full potential. If anyone has any idea where I'm going wrong, please do let me know. I thought they were pretty well watered when they started to die. Overwatering? Underwatering? Any answers you can give will be really, really helpful. Morning guys, we're off on a holiday to the Lake District, so I'm watering everything before we go. Leaving the garden to go away is always a bit bittersweet, as I know I won't see it looking quite like this again, as it will all have changed and moved on by the time I return. That evening in the pub, my oldest drew a picture of our allotment, a design of how he hopes it will look in the years ahead. After a lovely meal, we headed home to enjoy the stunning views of the Lakeland Fells from the cottage window. I miss the garden, but not too much. On Sunday we were joined by some wonderful friends, and no trip to the Lake District would be complete without a trip to Mr. McGregor's garden. This is the lovely garden at the World of Beatrix Potter attraction in Bowness on Windermere. We've been here many times and seen it in many different seasons, but I was admiring the different plants that they have, which are blooming at the moment. Particularly loved this cornflower basket. As you know, I love my cornflowers because they connect me to my granddad. I've got a basket just like this, and I thought this was a lovely idea. I really enjoyed seeing what they'd done with these, and it gave me some ideas for my own garden or perhaps allotment next year. Really love this. Then we headed into Mr. McGregor's greenhouse, where there are lots of beautiful terracotta pots. I'm trying to move more to terracotta pots throughout the garden now, so that was inspirational. And then we even found Peter's jacket hanging up there at the back of the vegetable garden. Then, after a picnic lunch overlooking the lake, we hopped on a boat and headed up to Ambleside to explore the little town, before returning back to Bowness for an evening meal. All in all, a wonderful day with wonderful friends. On Monday, my 4-year-old hiked his first Wainwright. This is Barrow Fell, just outside the village of Braithwaite, and it was a wonderful experience to share with the whole family. I was a little worried about how the garden and allotment were faring, but not too much. Tuesday the 1st of July was a very wet one in the Lake District, so we spent much of the day exploring Keswick's indoor attractions, and I found myself wishing I could send some of this wet weather back home where the allotment and garden were experiencing real drought conditions. The mountain we had climbed the previous day was in the mist, and I found myself questioning why anyone would choose to plant these plastic plants in this plant pot instead of real plants. Any ideas, anyone? On Wednesday, the sun was once again shining over the mountains, so we headed off on some more walks. Our first stop was the Rydal Caves, and we love seeing this lovely honesty shop here, selling lemon and lavender cake and some Coca-Cola and some postcards with photographs taken by the homeowner. Very inspirational. Would love to do something similar, but not sure how honest the folk of my town would be in comparison to here, but so lovely to see. Here we are, walking along the very well-marked path up to the caves, and the views from here over the lake are beautiful, with some small fells in the background as well. And we stopped at every waterfall to throw in some stones, which my little boys really enjoy. And the same here with this section of river that was running down from the mountains. Then we walked all the way up to the cave, and there are some lovely stepping stones that take you in, with some minnows swimming in the water, which my oldest really enjoyed. We've been to this cave many times over the years, first of all just as a couple, and then with our oldest when he was about 4 months old, and then with our youngest when he was about 8 months old, and here we are again with the boys growing fast all the time. And in this section of the cave here, they actually hold a carol service at Christmas, and I bet the acoustics are amazing. Then it was on to the Stockgill Force in Ambleside, and there was so much water flowing after the rainfall, and this was a beautiful, beautiful place to visit. After another fantastic day, we spent golden hour up on Lattrig, which overlooks the town of Keswick where we were staying. And this is my youngest's first time up here as well, so it was another lovely, memorable moment for us. And the views up here are just breathtaking. You can see down to Bassenthwaite Lake over there, and then when we round the edge of the hill here, you can see Derwent Water down below as well. Barrow Fell, Catbells, and lots of the other Lakeland Fells here. Some we've climbed and some we have yet to climb. A wonderful evening on the fells. Thursday began with a relaxing boat ride on Derwent Water, and I must say I wasn't worrying too much about the garden, with relaxing experiences like this to enjoy. We spent the afternoon at Winlatter, admiring these majestic trees and watching the butterflies as they danced amongst the wild foxgloves. We ended the evening with a chippy tea. Another perfect day. On Friday, it was another rainy day in the Lake District, so we visited the Maryport Aquarium, where we found these dahlia anemones. They definitely did bear a striking resemblance to the dahlias we grow in our gardens. What do you think? Can you see the striking similarities here? Really very beautiful and amazing to find something garden related in the aquarium. Saturday the 5th of July, and I am home. And it's time for watering, and more watering, as everything is looking a bit sad and dejected. The worms had plenty of food and moisture, and overall I was so pleased to see the garden looking a lot better than I had anticipated. After I'd finished watering, there was some deadheading to do. Here I am deadheading the cornflowers and saving the petals for confetti and the seeds for next year. When I was walking up the garden, I noticed the Crocosmia lucifer were out, which looked beautiful, but they had fallen over and needed some support. So that was the next job to do. I had these plant supports from last year and they're perfect in this area. I just should have done this much earlier in the season to prevent them having fallen over already, but they look fine now that they are staked, so that was great. Whilst I was staking them, I noticed this massive bramble going through the back of the hedge here, so I pulled that out as well to prevent it getting any bigger. Next, I had noticed that the tomatoes were getting even taller and needed some further staking and tying in, so that was the next job. And that brings me nicely to another area where I need your help. So you can see here the tomatoes are now starting to set fruit, the flowers are there, and the fruit will be coming very soon. We seem to have no problem with tomatoes in this greenhouse. However, look at the aubergines. The flowers just die off every time they start. We often get a lovely purple flower like this one's going to appear here, but then they just die off and end up falling to the bottom like the one down here. I have not yet managed to produce an aubergine. Can anyone help? What can be happening? I try hand pollinating them. I've used a brush to try pollinating them. They are in the same greenhouse where all the tomatoes are, which are pollinated by the bees. I don't pollinate them myself. So what is going on? If anyone has any ideas, I would love to hear your advice. Then, after a week away, there was plenty to harvest. So first of all, I started off with the peas. There were loads of full pods as well as more to come, so that was great. Then I moved on to the cucumbers, and there were 2 cucumbers ready to harvest, as well as 2 more to come very soon. So again, another amazing harvest. Next, it was on to the blueberries, and there were so many blueberries to pick. The raspberries didn't make it. I ate them all before I got them into the bowl, but here is a full punnet's worth of blueberries. Then I took one of the potato buckets that I showed you earlier in the video and just tipped it out here on this empty spot to see how many potatoes I would be able to harvest from one bucket. As you can see in a moment, I did get a small harvest, so I will be able to enjoy these. It's just not the amount I would be expecting for a bucket of this size and for a potato variety of this size. So if anyone can help, that will be wonderful. But nonetheless, look at this lovely harvest to welcome me home. Finally, I decided to harvest 2 of my elephant garlic bulbs, and I was really pleased with the size of these. So all in all, a wonderful welcome home. And it was then, with much trepidation, I headed to the allotment. Having been away for multiple days over 30 degrees, I was not sure what I would find, but I was pleasantly surprised. Apart from some yellowing on the beans and a few of the lower leaves of the brassicas dying back, things were looking a lot better than I expected. Of the 4 larger pumpkin varieties, 3 seemed to have survived. The Jack Be Littles weren't doing well before I left, and they still look like they probably aren't going to make it. But I do have some replacements in the greenhouse to replace these ones with. Losing only one of the larger pumpkins given the conditions definitely feels like a win. The story is similar here with the sweet peas in that the lower leaves are yellowing and they have been attacked by aphids, but they're still alive, so we leave them in and see what happens. The tromboncino courgettes are still going strong and getting some flowers on them, and things are looking so much better than I had feared. And the best part of it all, can you guess which was the sweet pea that decided to flower in spite of all the odds stacked against it? The sweet pea that was planted in honour of my late mother-in-law. The signs are always there, if you remember to look.